Hello and welcome to the No Balls Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McDonald, with me, co-host Finn McDonald. Today we are talking about all of the moves that have happened within the past week. It's been a pretty busy week. It's the winter meetings that just happened. Last time you heard of us was the Juan Soto episode, Finn, right? Does that
Yes, it
sound right?
was.
Yeah, that feels like it was forever ago. But now we have a ton of moves that have happened since then. Funnily enough, we haven't spoken about any of these moves really. I've tried to keep our reactions to be had on this platform here. So, first one, which one do you want to talk about first here, Finn?
I want to talk about Tucker to the Cubs.
Yeah, so we'll start with the big one. Kyle Tucker to the Cubs. In return, they receive Isaac Paredes, Hayden Wesneski, and Cam Smith. This is a one-year rental of Kyle Tucker. If I had to say anything on the chances of him extending, he's not going to. He's going to free agency, 100% sure. Him and Vlad, being the two top guys as far as position players go. Seeing Juan Soto get $765 million guaranteed alone should make them want to test the market, because they're not as good as Soto, but in Tucker's case, damn it, he's close. Overall, how do we feel about this return that Houston got? Because I'm very interested in your opinion here.
I feel like they got a good return. They got, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it 3 or 4 years of Isaac Paredes?
It was 3 years.
3 years of a potentially all-star third baseman who's not going to be making all-star third baseman money.
Mm-hmm.
They got a prospect, which is same position. I guess they could move him if they needed to, if he shows some potential. And with Wachensky, you will never have enough pitching depth. You can always use good pitching depth.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen the initial reactions around this trade, and for me, so many people are trashing on this return, when honestly, when I first saw it, I was like, that's a great return for Kyle Tucker. We'll touch on this return more. There was a rumored rejected deal from Philadelphia for Nick Castellanos and Alec Bohm. Which return would you have rather had, Finn?
Most certainly the return that they got.
Yeah. Specifically because Isaac Paredes is probably better than Alec Bohm. I would say he is better than Alec Bohm, actually. Isaac Paredes is a very unique player in the fact that if you look at his batting average, he's not a great player. If you look at his circles on what color they are on Baseball Savant, he's also probably not a great player. But then you look, everything he hits is a pulled fly ball. Literally most of his batted balls are pulled in the air to left field. And that is going to result to you in at least 25 homers. In the Crawford boxes, I wouldn't be surprised if that creeps towards 35-40. Paredes is a great fit here in Houston. He's only 25 years old. What the hell, man? It feels like he's been here forever. He's 25 years old. 3 years of control for Paredes. You said all-star third baseman. He was last year. I feel like he's got more in the tank than he's even done over these past 2 years, where he's been a solidified top 10 third baseman over the past 2 years. That alone, for me, is borderlining on a full year of Kyle Tucker. Then you add Cam Smith into that deal, and like you said, same position. don't care. He was drafted this past season. He got all the way up to Double-A just because he mashed so much in the lower minors. He got up to Double-A. He's an athletic guy too. I think is the important part to think here. I could see Cam Smith moving to right field if they really need him to. In the future, I could see Paredes moving to third or to first base to accommodate having Cam Smith in the big leagues. The return of Cam Smith and Paredes is great. Washneski, definitely a throw-in guy. Big slider. Like he averages like 18 inches of horizontal movement on his slider. It's a sweeper slider. Either way, I'm sure the Astros can tap into something here. They have pretty much their rotation. Like the guys are there. Assuming they can bring Verlander back. They have their rotation. They're just kind of bringing in a guy who they think can fill some middle relief innings for them. And I really like this deal for Houston. I really like it for Chicago. How do you feel about it for Chicago?
I feel like if you don't make the postseason, it's a massive L.
Yeah, which that's how all rental trades are. If you look at it prospect-wise, they have Matt Shaw, who's big league ready. They needed to find a roster spot for him. So that spot would be having him play third base. Matt Shaw will probably start on opening day at third base for them, unless they move Nico Horner too, which I don't see happening. Chicago just really needed some solid consolidation. They have a ton of prospects who are basically big league ready. Pete Crow Armstrong didn't have a spot until earlier today, and he's an awesome player. Owen Casey has 40 home run potential. He's close to major league ready. He wasn't gonna have a spot. I think this consolidation move is really good for Chicago, and I could see them being in the market to add another big name pitcher. We'll see if they end up doing that. Maybe it's Luis Castillo, maybe it's Jesus Luzardo. I'm not sure yet. Maybe Luis Castillo isn't very available now that the Astros are moving off Tucker, but we'll see. For the Astros,
I almost feel like they have to add they have to add a pitcher.
yeah,
If they're going to trade for a rental like Kyle Tucker, you have to throw the kitchen sink at the World Series.
yeah, really push all in. Give Tucker a reason to sign an extension. He probably won't, but give him a good, image of his mind about Chicago. So when it's free agency time and you're short of that $1 million, those $5 million, he'll be like, hey, no, I just want to stay in Chicago. I think it's a great move for both teams. For Houston, do you think this? I think so. Do you think this basically spells the end of Bregman in Houston?
I do.
I agree. Thinking about it this way, if I had to give a 10-word, I don't
At
know,
least the
summary.
long term end. The only way I could see him going back is if he got a very short term deal to play third and have Paredes at first for a year while you're waiting on Cam Smith to have that year in the minors that he needs.
Get the upper minors experience. Yeah, I agree with you. If I had to give this trade a 10-word summary, Houston solidifies their third base position for the next 8 years. Paredes for 2 or 3 of those. Cam Smith then comes up. I think this is great for Houston. A great move. You got what you could out of Kyle Tucker. If you look at previous rentals, basically in line, but not one for one, but probably value-wise will be pretty similar to what the Padres got for Soto. And then even you date back to the Lindor trade. I think this is even a stronger return than that Lindor trade. So, let's go to the other Chicago move that happened earlier today. I'm glad we waited the extra day before recording. Bellinger to the Yankees for Chad Poteet. What? How do we think about this trade, Finn?
I feel like it needed to happen. You have to give PCA a shot. You have to have capital available to be able to afford pitching without your owner yelling at you.
Yeah,
Now maybe they can afford to trade for that Luis Castillo and not give as much up because they're going to take on more money.
I agree. Um, we forgot the grades on the Tucker trade. I graded A+ for Houston. I graded B+ for Chicago, just because there is the chance that Tucker leaves.
I agree with you on Houston, but I would have gone just a solid B for Chicago.
Okay, I like the little difference there. I like it. Further on in the Yankees trade, for the Yankees, we'll contrast it with a couple other moves that they made, but I do feel like this Bellinger move is very savvy for the Yankees. Sure, Bellinger's declined defensively in center field. If you date back to 2023, this is a guy who played some pretty good defense in center field, hit at an above average rate. It'll move Aaron Judge to the corner for good now. I think that alone makes this deal worth it, even if Bellinger's not going to be the great defender that he was in 22 and 23. And if he is, then that's even better for you, and you're getting him at below market value for a guy who's going to do all that, or at market value, give or take. Either way, I think it's a great pickup for the Yankees. If you look at what they had to give up, Chad Poteet, I was seeing people saying like he's a somewhat valuable piece. He's a big league arm. Um, Average fastball with him. Throws a couple other pitches. Sweeper has a lot of drop to it. So maybe they can rework some things there in Chicago. I'm not sure yet with Poteet. It's whatever for them. The big part of this deal, like you said, was getting the money to make another move and to free up a spot for PCA. How would you grade this one?
That one, A, both sides.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think for the Cubs, I'm gonna go a little bit lower. I think I'm gonna go a B, just because you are giving up a big leaguer, and I don't think you're really getting a big leaguer back. If that makes sense, like a good big leaguer. And like I really don't think Bellinger was that expensive. I think you could have even waited another half season, and then still made this deal if it really wasn't like working the way you want it to. But regardless, I'm picking hairs. I think it's a B, which I think is a solid move. Um, let's go forward to some other Yankee moves because
First I'd like to comment on that. The issue is, where would he have played?
yeah,
Because at this
that
point, I feel like benching PCA is a disservice to Chicago.
I agree. Which that makes sense too. I feel like you could have gone another year with Bellinger, but it seemed the whole off season so far that they were basically done with him and going to move him.
I do
So
think that Chicago should have given more money for a better return.
yeah, I think I agree with you too. Uh, like just paid a little bit more on him this current season. I think you could have gotten a really solid return for Bellinger. It just maybe we're scratching at things, but there has to be another move following this for me to think that this is a solid move. You know what I mean? Are you good to go to some of the other Yankee moves?
Yes.
Which one do you want to start with?
How about Devin Williams?
Okay. So, like I said before with Bellinger, I think that was a pretty savvy move. The other two Yankee moves, I don't think I can speak as highly of. I'm interested in what you have to say here. I'll let you start with Devin Williams. Go ahead.
Yes, they needed bullpen. I think they gave up slightly too much.
I 100% agree.
I feel like they could have. I like Nestor Cortez in there, but I feel like they could have given up a lot less than Caleb Durbin as the
Yeah,
other player.
let's combine this in the free deal because I feel like the free deal is very important context for this. Prior to the Max Fried deal, they had Cole, Rodon, Schroman, who were making so much financially that you had to give them a rotation spot. You also had Cortez, and then you had Clark Schmidt and Luis Heel, who are good and young players who you probably need to give rotation spots to. So for me, going out and spending a guaranteed $220 million on a guy who is worth that money but does not fit what you need it's a panic deal, in my opinion. Not to say that I don't hate the value of the Fried contract. It's just I don't think it was the right move for the Yankees. I feel like they could have much better allocated that money because now their rotation with Fried, Rodon, Cole, that alone is $60 million. No, that's not the correct math. That's $90 million. Then you add Schroman, who's making $18 million, 107. You have so much money tied up to those guys. Giancarlo Stanton, he can't play the outfield anymore. Aaron Judge is making his 40. It's just, I think this is a really bad way to restrain your spending, just because you felt like you needed to make a big splash. And I don't feel like this was the right way to respond to losing Juan Soto. This going forward to the Yankees deal with the Brewers, now Cortez is like a guy they have to trade, right? Because he doesn't have the upside that Gill and Schmidt do. And he's making $7 million, and you're not going to have a place for him to play, right? Let's say you do a six-man rotation. Cortez, he might be that sixth guy, but do you want your sixth starter making $7 million when I've already laid out your financial situation? Probably not. So now you're selling him off. Teams know you want to sell him off. You're not going to get as much as you probably are going to need to garner or to warrant trading a guy who is a legitimate, solid four starter in the league. The process here was all backwards. If you think about what they gave up for Devin Williams, I don't think it's too bad. You mentioned Caleb Durbin. I think that's a rough loss. He had a 400 on base percentage in AAA last year. That's some really good stuff. You look at his other things. He hits line drives. He doesn't hit a lot of ground balls. He pulls the ball in the air. That's kind of what you want to see out of a guy who just doesn't strike out. This guy struck out at a less than 10% clip last season in AAA. Caleb Durbin was going to get at bats for them, and he might start over in Milwaukee. I think Caleb Durbin alone could have got you Devin Williams, let alone a very good major league starter, who, albeit, does have some injury concerns. But the process here, not my favorite. I'll let you talk on Fried and Devin Williams acquisitions. Let me say this: these do make them better team in the current year. So, go ahead.
I'm surprised you don't try and trade Marcus Stroman. I feel like if you throw in, like, say, $6 million in a trade, and you don't get that much back, you could have still brought in Fried, and you could have kept Nestor Cortez.
Yep. Or think about it this way. They've already guaranteed Stroman to have a role on the Yankees next year. Like, I said $107 million to 4 of their starters. It's a lot, man. Now they have so much. And Stroman is done after the 2025 or the 2026 season. But it just really restrains how much you can spend to fill out the roster. And for me, like, the vision was, how can we improve our team in total after the Soto loss? And I feel like signing Fried and then making this Williams acquisition, where they actually take on money in the deal, by the way. Like, Milwaukee did, or no, the Yankees even sent out money. So, you're not getting off money taking on Devin Williams. I don't see how these moves help you improve in the aggregate, even though Fried is better than what they were doing at their 3 and 4 starters last year. It just pigeonholes them like they have one move left, probably.
You have to win the 162, but if you win the 162, this rotation will look good and could pay dividends in the postseason. That is the
I
one
agree.
good thing about the Fried signing.
Yep. And notice how we've said nothing about the length or the value of this deal. We think that is pretty standard. This is what Max Fried was going to go for. He's been one of the best run preventers in the league the past 5 years. It's just, we don't think it was the right move, quite frankly. Look at, Finn, do you know who they're starting in the corner infield now? Like, LeMahieu? Oswaldo Cabrera? Durbin was going to get at-bats. If I had to grade these moves, right, if I am just looking at the deals that happened and say, hey, Max Fried signed for $218 over 8 years, that's an A- right there. But for the Yankees, this was not the right move for them. B, just because it was everything except the attention to detail, I think, was on there. I'm interested in what you say on Fried.
You said B? I was going to go on lower. I got a C.
Yeah. I don't think it's crazy unreasonable. It just spells panic to me, and I don't like it, man. It's
I
not gonna.
get wanting to make a big splash after you lose a generational talent like Soto, but it would have been much better for the team if that splash was Teoscar Hernandez or Anthony Santander.
Yeah, which would have 1-for-1 replaced it, or let's say they were like, hey, instead of spending $27 million on Fried, let's go get Harrison Bader for $7 million. Let's go get Jurickson Profar for $11 million. He'll play left field for us. Bring back Gleyber Torres. You could have done that. Or hey, you didn't even have to sign Bader. You could have had Jazz Chisholm play center field, and then you bring in another infielder or two. Then you have a spot for Durbin to play in the big leagues. It feels like they're trying to fit a square peg in a circular hole here. I don't see how the pieces line up for them. I think they have another signing on the horizon. It will probably be a corner infielder. If it's not, there's some issues. But this is not going to be unless they really surprise me with how much money they're going to spend. They've already spent $55 million that Juan Soto is going to get next season. They've already spent over that. How much more do they have?
They have to have at least a Christian Walker in them if
I
they're
think they
going to
have
have a good lineup.
I think they have a Christian Walker. I've seen that they were rumored to Carlos Santana. I think that would actually be a pretty good move right there. Next, let's grade the Williams acquisition for them. Williams for Cortez and Durbin. I will go a B-.
I'm going to go with C again. I think they overpaid by a good bit.
Yeah. I think the incomplete part with me here is what they were hearing about Nestor on the open market from other teams. Not on the open market, but on the trade market. If it comes out that his value was really shot, like it was dead, then I do see like this being okay. But for me, like Durbin for Williams alone would have been enough. In a deal, they could have even held on to Cortez and sent him to Chicago and had Chicago eat money. It would have made sense. But no, they
Even
lose
if
$3
his
million.
value was shot, exactly, do that.
Yeah, like you
Get
saw
a
what
not that great return, but have Chicago eat the entire contract.
Yeah, they wouldn't have done that. But they would have sent some money over. I mean, at the very least, like you saw what they just gave up for Bellinger. They gave up Chad Poteet. That was all. They could have given up Nestor Cortez and had them, the Cubs sent $5 million to cover a buyout potentially after this season. They would have maybe sent $15 million over the next 2 years instead of just 5. So I think we've graded enough Yankee moves. What else has happened this offseason? They're rivals.
Garrett Crochet.
Right where I was going, Finn. They're rivals, the Red Sox. They make a move for Garrett Crochet. In return, they give up Kyle Teal, Braden Montgomery, Chase Midrith, I believe is how you say it, and then Wilkman Gonzalez. For those who don't know, Kyle Teal, top 25 prospect. Braden Montgomery, top 60-ish prospect. Chase Midrith, like a not ranked prospect, but a guy who, if I had to, I feel like it's a pretty safe bet to say he is going to be a starter for Chicago this upcoming season. In 122 games in AAA last year, he had a 132 WRC plus. He walked at a 19% clip to only a 13% K rate. There's not too much power upside with Midrith, but he's going to, play a big league infield position somewhere. As a fielder, he's fringy, but he'll make he'll carve out a role for him. And then he's the third best piece. Wilklin Gonzalez, a somewhat interesting relief prospect for Boston prior to this trade. I consider him a throw-in with some upside. We basically have to grade Teal for Teal, Montgomery, Midriff, throw in Wilkin Gonzalez for Crochet. What do we think about this deal, Finn?
I like it for both sides.
Yeah,
This
I
is
like it
another one
for.
where I'll go an A for both sides. Boston really needed pitching, and Chicago ain't going anywhere. They needed to get prospects for players that are performing now when they are not going to be winning games.
100%. If I had to, really give props to an organization here, because they've needed some props. They haven't had a good couple years. This is a great move for Chicago. Like, if you would have said a calendar year ago that Garrett Crochet was going for 2 top 50 prospects, give or take. I don't know where Montgomery 100% ranks, but two guys who are standout prospects in a loaded system, and then a major league caliber starter in Chase Midrith, and then a throw-in guy who has some upside in Wilkin Gonzalez. Like, a year ago, Crochet would have gone for Gonzalez and Midrith. That's it. They've done a great job, realizing that they could capture some extra value with him as a starter, then managing his starter workload while turning down some probably pretty good trades at the deadline this past year for Crochet, when everybody just criticized them for holding on to a guy. Clearly, for me, this is a great move for Chicago, because there's no chance Crochet would have really ever had much higher value than he has right now. Boston's end, you get a really good starter. I think I am a little lower on the idea of acquiring Crochet than a lot of people who have good baseball opinions do. I'd be a little, concerned about just in general. Like, he's had one season as a starter. He's, really only had one season as a really good run preventer in the MLB. So that's how I feel about it. This is basically what cheap starting pitching was probably going to go for on the trade market. I like the deal for both sides, but I love it for Chicago. For me, it's an A+ for Chicago. And then for Boston, I'm going to take back the Crochet run preventer thing. As a younger guy, he was really great at run prevention. He had a rough season in 23. But for Boston's end, I give it a B+. I like it. From this deal, what do for Chicago fan, Teal, I think immediately he might not be their number one, because Colson Montgomery, I believe, is still a top 20 guy. But Teal's clearly their number 2 guy, and I think Montgomery, no, because they have Noah Schultz too. Man, Chicago has a really good system now. Yeah, I really like this move for Chicago. That's where I'm going to sum it up. I'm going to let you talk for a second.
I feel like if that move's going to be made, if Robert is having a good season at the deadline, he must go as well.
Which I think will 100% happen. I think they're in a position right now where they realize his value's kind of shot right now. They think it's going to be really easy for him to replenish some value next season. And I think they'll be ready to do it. I think they're starting to get things together in Chicago. All honestly, all honesty, like they never really didn't have things together. It's just everything that could have gone wrong with them kind of went wrong over like a 2-year span. Like Tim Anderson went from like an all-star caliber player to being unplayable. Eloy Jimenez just tore 2 ACLs. Yohan Moncada missed a ton of time and then was beat up by injuries. Abreu left in free agency. Lance Lynn, played like his age. So many things went wrong for them, and I feel like to be in the position that they are right now, um, says a lot. I feel like they've done some good things, despite the on-field results haven't really been very good. So, I hope that in 2026, Montgomery, Teal, and Midrith will all be starting players for Chicago, and Wilkin Gonzalez will be a really good back of the end of the bullpen arm. We'll see, though. Let's see. Do you have any other moves that you specifically want to talk about?
Yes. Andres Jimenez to Toronto, and then Spencer Horwitz to the Pirates from Cleveland.
Yeah.
I kind of need to burn the Blue Jays today because they deserve it.
This was an interesting one because, if I had to explain what happened in this move, I really couldn't tell you. So Toronto gives up Spencer Horwitz, has 5 years of control. In return, they take on Andres Jimenez, Nick Sandlin, and then Cleveland flips Spencer Horwitz to Pittsburgh for Luis Ortiz, Josh Hartle, who I think is the key piece of this deal. It could be Ortiz as well, and Michael Kennedy. Hartle, a really good relief prospect in the Pittsburgh system. Kennedy's actually ranked higher in the Pirates system. I wasn't familiar with him before this trade. And then Luis Ortiz, a cost-controlled major league starter. Maybe he's not a good starter at this point in his career, but he could probably eat some innings for you, and they love guys who can eat innings in Cleveland, and they'll probably figure some stuff out with him too. I guess let's first talk about it from the Toronto perspective, because I know you have some things to say on that.
It doesn't make sense. Not with the contract that Jimenez has. They get an F.
Yeah, for context too, my God, it's so crazy when I saw this. Jimenez is a very good player, right? And I think that's getting lost here. For some people, he's making $10 million this season, $15 million next season, and then $23.5 million for the 3 years following that. If I had to describe the quality of a player he is, it's like we talked about the Tommy Edman move and saying that him signing for $15 million was probably an underpay. I think Jimenez is a little worse than Tommy Edman, and then making significantly more money than Tommy Edman. And that's how I would describe it. Jimenez is a good ball player. I don't want that to get lost here, but I mean that money is tough.
Also, they gave up their Vladimir Guerrero Jr. replacement. Or potential replacement. It was a pretty good hitter.
Yeah. If I had to also say on Horwitz, I didn't like him too much as a prospect. He had really good success in the majors this season. He was like 120 OPS plus, 20% above league average. I mean, that's what you like to see. Um, Young guy. I'm not sure how much more upside there is to go with him, but good move. The one good thing for Toronto, I guess, they take Nick Sandlin. Cleveland didn't want him. I guess that says something about him. Um, I don't know how I feel about this move for Toronto. Because Jimenez is 100% going to perform well in his 5+ seasons in Toronto. It's just, I don't know if this was the move, especially because you're going to have to pay Vlad Jr. in a year or two. And you're just adding financial commitment to your payroll. Maybe we're picking at straws here, but
His bat has to come back for you to be worth $23 million at second base.
I feel like if his bat is hovering around league average like it has been these past 2 years, it's like fine for 23 million, but like you'd rather not just pay him 23 million. It's just I feel like he's going to continue to be a league average hitter who, he does it well with the glove, but not something you're going to jump out of your seat about. Pittsburgh's perspective, how do you feel about this?
Pittsburgh, I'd go a B. They did need first base. That was a big question mark. They had Rowdy Tellez last year, and he just was not making the cut for what you want your first baseman to be. They cannot be a well below average hitter.
Yep, that's what I got. Horowitz addresses that. Like I said, 20% above league average. It's great stuff. For Cleveland, taking on two relievers in Kennedy and Hartle. Anytime Cleveland gets a reliever, I am convinced that they are going to win reliever of the year in 5 seasons. We'll see what happens with these guys. Hartle was a very interesting relief prospect coming out of college. We'll see. We will wait and see on Cleveland from this part. At the very least, they're getting off of the $100 million of financial commitments that they would have had if they did not make this deal.
Cleveland gets an A.
Yeah, for Cleveland, I feel like I give them an A here. And you could say that they should have just taken Horowitz and not done the other move with Pittsburgh, but they have Manzardo, they have Chase DeLauder. They got some left-handed hitting guys who could play first base. They currently have Josh Naylor too.
Not to mention that wasn't at $100 million makes an extension for Josh Naylor much more feasible. I still don't see it happening. If I see it happening more than I would, still having to pay that $100 million.
No way Cleveland would. Another team I could see extending Naylor in this situation, but definitely not Cleveland. Also, like they drafted Bazana this past year. Bazana's going to play second base near soon. That's not English, but near soon. And then Brian Rocchio at the big league level, see what they get out of him. Gabriel Arias at the big league level, they can fill in at second base for a half season or more. But I would think that this is just showing a lot of faith in Bazana, who they selected first overall last season. So, I give this an A- for Cleveland. For Toronto, I give it a C-. D+. Pittsburgh, I give it a B. I like the idea of bringing in Horwitz for them. I'm sure they can figure some stuff up to cover those innings that they're giving up, which, you know, you're trading relief prospects, like anytime you can get an established hitter, not established, but a upside hitter for relief prospects, I'm probably going to like the deal. Well, were there any huge moves that we still need to cover, or are we gonna go through?
There was that international guy I sent you earlier that went to Baltimore.
Um, yeah, Tamayuchi Sagano, 1 year, 13 million. Didn't really know much about him till he posted. From what I understand, he's like pitch to contact heavy guy, not going to blow you away. Stuff wise, for me, like he's probably a 4 starter in the major leagues. If you look at what Baltimore paid him, it's a 4 starter. Um, I can't really hate this move too much. To me, it sounds no more Corbin Burns. Um, B, you get a B. Good job, Baltimore.
That
How do you,
sounds about accurate there.
is that what you agree with too?
Yeah.
Okay, we did miss one move. That was real significant. We'll go over some of the smaller moves after this. Oakland, Finn. Back-to-back episodes we're talking about Oakland making moves. They acquired Jeffrey Springs, and Jacob Lopez. Jacob Lopez, for a player, not the big piece here. The big piece is Jeffrey Springs. In return, the Rays get Joe Boyle, Will Simpson, Jacob Waters, competitive balance draft pick, essentially the 36th pick in next year's draft. Initial thoughts. What do we have? For context, this is also 3 years of Jeffrey Springs, 10 million, 10 million, and then a $15 million team option is remaining on his payments.
It seems like they really don't want to get a grievance filed against them.
For not spending money. So much for our Let's Argue episode, Finn. So much for it. How do you feel about this move, other than them finally spending money?
I feel like it's a C.
Okay.
I don't hate it. I don't necessarily like it either.
Okay. For me, I feel like I'm in the B minus range. Springs is good if you get what Jeffrey Springs was a season ago in Tampa Bay, then this is a great move. He missed pretty much the whole season this past year with surgery. For me, like the most valuable piece you're giving up here is Joe Boyle. Or besides that draft pick is Joe Boyle, who is a guy who, he's got great stuff. He is 6'7" and throws gas. It's just he doesn't know where it's going. The fact that he's going to Tampa Bay maybe gives me a little bit more optimism, but we're gonna wait and see that Joe Boyle is a proven major leaguer before I'm waving flags and celebrating what Tampa Bay is doing here. Overall, though, for Oakland, yeah, Jeffrey Springs, good acquisition. I would give this. I'm gonna settle with B for Oakland. How do we feel about this from the perspective of Tampa Bay, Finn?
B minus. I like that
Yeah,
they develop pitchers. I think they're gonna develop that pitcher.
Boyle. Um, if you look at it too, Tampa Bay, they were going to have an influx of starters just because they're so good at developing starters. They were going to have too many. Springs was making the most money besides Shane McClanahan, maybe even including McClanahan, actually. It made sense to move Springs while he still had some value. Boyle, I consider it a lottery ticket. If you can get him to throw strikes, he'll probably be pretty good. Will Simpson, Waters, more or less organizational depth, and then competitive balance pick. I think is actually pretty valuable to get. You basically get a first round pick, which you can't trade for those in the major leagues. It's not the NBA. Anytime you get a top pick in a draft, I do consider it like a decent move. On, do you have anything else on that move before we just wrap up quickly with some other signings?
No, I don't.
Okay. We'll go through all the other minor signings that have happened. Mets signed Jared Young, whatever. It's major league minimum. Pirates get Emmanuel Valdez from Boston for Joe Vicazzi. It's a depth move. Um, uh, uh, Emmanuel Valdez was DFA'd prior to this. Like, these are not very impactful major leaguers. Boston also makes a minor move with the Yankees. They get some international signing money. They take on Nelmer Rodriguez, and then the Red Sox acquire Carlos Nevarez. It, Rodriguez was a top 13 prospect for Boston. This could end up, paying some dividends for the Yankees. We'll see. Yeah, probably not a huge move at the end of the day. Yankees re-signed Jonathan Loaizaga to a 1+1. A solid move. You get some upside with a guy who previously had success. You go,
Instagram, stop spreading fake news.
man, Finn. We knew right away that Loaizaga deal was not real. I guess we do have another important deal, actually. Jake Berger goes to Texas. In return, Miami gets Max Acosta, Edury Vargas, and then Brian Mendoza. I think I texted you when this deal went down. I kind of like this Marlins, this Marlins ownership or decision room, whatever. I like what they're doing overall. Over the past 2 years, we both have talked about it pretty thoroughly that they've made some good moves. Maybe not very popular moves, but they've made some good moves. And you get Max Acosta and Vargas, who are coming off of their best professional seasons. You get Mendoza, who, he's a left-hander. You can figure something out, maybe get a good reliever out of him. This is a good move for both teams. Texas, I gave you an A just because I don't think Acosta or Vargas have much upside to them. Although Vargas, did have some success in the lower minors this year. I don't think it's going to hurt you too much. These are probably utility infielders at their peak. So I give it an A for Texas. And then for Miami, I think I also give it an A just because, sell high on Berger while you can. It's a power hitting quarter infielder. Shelf life for those guys, not too long. How do you feel on this move?
Yeah, like you said, Berger, he's kind of old to be on a team that will be rebuilding for at least, I would say, 2 more seasons minimum.
I agree. So, yeah. Other than that, minor moves have happened. Tigers signed Alex Cobb. I think one of the more, uh, you know, potentially impactful deals. Makes sense for Detroit. Yeah, Alex Cobb on a 1-year deal. Pretty decent run prevention wise. And then Jordan Romano goes to Philadelphia on a 1-year deal. He was previously DFA'd by Toronto. Um, if Toronto hadn't re-signed Yemi Diaz on a pretty solid deal, 15 over 2, I would say that they have had a strikeout offseason. Other than that, I think they've put the ball in play once with Yemi Diaz's contract. Any other notes that you have that have happened recently? I guess the Rule 5 draft has happened. Uh, do you have anything else real quick?
I don't.
Rule 5 wise, let's see. Who do I want to give the stamp of approval for who I think is going to be the best Rule 5 guy? All right, I'm doing it. We already talked about Chicago. I think Gage Workman might have the best season out of anybody who was selected in the Rule 5. He's a really good athlete. He can play all around the infield. He could legitimately play shortstop for them, even though they have Horner and Swanson, who I think will definitely, get that role before him. He's been a guy who hasn't really had much success with the bat in the minors, but if you look at some of the underlying metrics in his minor league career, he hits the ball really hard. He just has some swing and miss to his game. I could see Gage Workman potentially becoming a major league starter at some point in his career. I think right away he has a role as a utility infielder in Chicago, with Matt Shaw, Swanson, and Horner all being right-handed hitters. Having a lefty in Workman who gave up switch hitting before 2024 and then had his best offensive season. There could be some dividends to that. Other than that, that's going to do it for this one. Been a really fun start to the offseason. We have more moves to talk about that are going to happen. Man, I hope before May again, or March is what I meant. I hope before March. MLB offseason is in full swing. We will see you guys next time.